Well, things aren't going according to plan for Nathan Jones at Stoke City. Just 1 point from 7 matches. An absolutely dreadful start. It's hard to imagine they could have had a worse start. And the question's obviously being asked now about how long is he going to be given patience-wise. He asked the question himself at the weekend after a 2-1 defeat home to Bristol City. Very similar to so many games this season. They started the game well in the right manner. They got themselves on top. They got themselves in front. And then a red card for Joe Allen, very early in the game. Changed the entire complexion of the game. And then Bristol City in the second half picked them off twice to win the game 2-1. With 2 goals that were, poor goals to give away, as Jones himself admitted. And you just begin to wonder now, how long can this go on? I do think it would be wise for Stoke to stick with him, and my threshold would be a lot higher than most. I think Jones is very, very good Championship manager. I think he'll prove himself to be more than equipped for the level, and I still think Stoke can get into the top 6 this season. I think their early data has been good. It's not spectacular anymore, but that's to be expected with confidence. I think we've seen enough glimpses that the process can work for them. But there's some key stats that just jump off the page in terms of what's going wrong. The main one being they've conceded 17 goals and 14 goals from open play in just 7 matches. And this is a team, their XG data only projects that they should have conceded about 8.5 goals at this stage, and they've conceded 17. So they're conceding twice as many goals as their XG would be projecting. They're spending, a high proportion of games in the opposition third, and very little time in their own third. But whenever teams are going forward and creating chances, they're scoring goals. A lot of it's coming down to, individual errors. Jack Butland's had a bit of a nightmare at the beginning of the season. The 2 goals at the weekend, complaints about them defending the back post badly. And there's been a change of system in the middle of this, because they started the season with, Jones's preferred diamond formation that worked so well for him at Luton. And they've now switched to variations of 3 at the back, just to try and give themselves a bit more of a stranglehold on games. But again, the results continue to nosedive. Now, the question... The big issue from a manager personality perspective, the big issue is that a lot of Jones's success has been built on faith. He's a very religious man, and it's something that he brings into his leadership style as a manager. That he wants players that comply and buy into the overall collective cause. He doesn't tolerate individuals and individual personalities and individual expression that goes against the collective interests. And the very premise on which his philosophy's built, and hard work, athleticism, and basically he won't. There's basic premises to his philosophy that players have to buy into wholeheartedly. He'll sniff you out as soon as he suspects any inkling of a player not buying in 100% to what he's asking, and maybe even thinking for themselves a little bit too much and going off plan. They won't last 2 minutes under him, and he'll call it out. He'll recognise it straight away, and it's this reliance on faith and just implicit trust in the system, and trust and belief in yourselves and your teammates that that the way you're following is the right way is absolutely essential. So now, obviously, with confidence, that comes in jeopardy. That there's a certain amount of jeopardy now. This is when faith really gets tested, and whether you really do believe in the manager and his methods, and whether you do believe in this collective tactical identity that you've got. Because on the surface, according to results, right now it's not working. So that's the problem he's got. As soon as that faith begins to dwindle, I think you'll start to see Jones become angrier and angrier with his players. I don't think that faith has dwindled yet, and I do believe that you know, he has still got the backing of his players, judging by, you know, recent efforts. I don't think there's been a nosedive in terms of the performance data, but the big issue is if it does turn, what happens then? Because if results pick up in the next few weeks and all of this is brushed under the carpet and it becomes a distant memory that people are even questioning that Jones could be out of a job, you know, barely 9 months after taking it, then I think it can go the other way. I think Jones is a sort of manager that can galvanise from almost anything, but he needs the encouragement first. I think if they come through this period and weather it, I do think that Stoke mentally will become stronger as the season goes on for the experience. I think this season, you know, progress was made towards the end of last season, but the real acid test, in terms of the performance data, but the real acid test was always going to be this season and whether they could start in the same vein and sustain it, because towards the end of a season, you've always got this issue with, well, games don't really matter. It's easy to keep teams down to very little, sort of very few chances and very small XG numbers in March and April if you're basically, you know, working really hard to a tactical plan and carrying it out to the letter at that time of the season. But when you start a new season, then it's a different story. So that was the big issue this season, and had they started well, the danger would be not complacency, but, you know, not really knowing where they're at. I don't think that's an issue now. I think if Stoke turn this round, given the start that they've had, I think Jones will play it for all it's worth. That, you know, look at what you've been through, lads, that you've come through this. This speaks volumes about your mental character, about the, you know, the mental strength that we've got in this dressing room, and you know, teams out there have been through nothing like what we've been through, and he'll just play all those, you know, all that psychology is right up Jones's street to separate it, very much an us versus them mentality, us against the world, and that basically the identity that we've got, other teams don't have it. What we've been through, other teams haven't been through. We're different, we're special, we're, you know, and it's very much on the we, not on the, you know, on the individuals, like I say. So I think it's something that as the season develops, if Stoke can come through this period, I think it can be something that galvanises them more and more as the season goes on, that makes them buy into the idea that something, you know, extraordinary can happen. I don't think they'll just push out of the bottom six and then loiter around mid-table. I think if they get the results to get themselves out of trouble in the next couple of months, I think they'll generate a momentum. And I know momentum's a word that, you know, a lot of people, basically everyone has a different idea of what momentum is. I think in this case, though, I do think if Stoke were to get the results to get themselves out of trouble quite quickly and just go on a run of 6, 7, 8 matches that are almost, you know, that's basically the polar opposite of the last 7 matches, then I think at that point, I think they'll be in a much better position than they would have been had they have loitered to that sort of 13th, 14th position after 14, 15 matches of the season. I think they'll be a lot stronger to keep going and like I say, generate that momentum to keep heading towards the top 6, because there'll still be an awful lot of time left in the season, and Jones as a manager is going to play this for all it's worth on the psychology side if they come through the other side. But to come through the other side, you need that patience, and that's going to be the key question now in the next few weeks. Can it turn soon, and can the club and the supporters keep a level of patience? Because at the moment, I think Stoke fans generally accept the fact that for the most part they've been unlucky, but, you know, the tide slowly but surely is beginning to turn and will only continue to go that way. So they need results fast, but if they do, I still think there's no ceiling for Stoke this season. Maybe automatic promotion, obviously, but I still think the top 6 is you know, is still a possibility if there's a quick turnaround.